Hello, fellow reader, and welcome to this Lunar Nebula reading author profile on Sarah Lynn. In general, Sarah Lynn writes for an adult audience. She usually has quite a bit of world building in there, and she does a great job showing her characters, their thoughts, relationships, reactions, etc. Probably best shown in, I want to say, Archcrafter, the latest Weird Key Chronicles book. At any rate, overall, I would say the only issue people would probably have would be her pacing. I did try her Brightest Shadow series, and it seemed too focused on the politics over the characters to me, and I didn't end up finishing it when I was trying it, but I was also running out of my Kindle Unlimited subscription when I was reading it that time. Moving on. Once again, I think Sarah Lynn's strengths are her world building. Hello Future Me on YouTube and other booktubers have talked about Street Cultivation. That's probably her most famous series. And think of it as a martial arts cultivation novel, but the world has evolved to the point where everything feels modern. So people are biking around or taking cars powered by various martial arts energy called lucrum. The idea is your lucrum or key is even connected to how you can pay for things, right? So the more energy you can generate, the more wealthy you are. So it also kind of delves into the difficulties of trying to train up and get lucrum when everybody's kind of taken all the natural resources already and basically overdrawn everything. And so the series continues, and we meet Rick's sister, who he's trying to help basically recover from a condition that will probably kill her unless they can figure out a solution. And for parents to know, often the sister makes a lot of adult jokes, and it's kind of Rick and her's way of dealing with some of the harsh realities that they face. But yeah, that might be something to note. So honestly, Street Cultivation, I would probably say teenager and up, I'd recommend for. Once again, Sarah Lynn mostly writes for adults, and the pacing might be a little less action-oriented than a teenager would enjoy. But overall, I really like the book. It's probably one of my favorites that she's done, other than the Weird Key Chronicles, which is just fun. But Street Cultivation, once again, if you like martial arts action, you like world building, seeing how kind of a Murim or martial arts world would modernize and what problems a person would face while living there, then I think you'll love Street Cultivation. If you instead like cultivation novels and also the idea of collecting priceless artifacts and things to try to make yourself stronger, then I think you'll really like the Weird Key Chronicles, which I've already mentioned multiple times. In the Weird Key Chronicles, the idea is a guy has been transported out of Earth to the 9 realms, which may or may not be 9 realms, but turns out he gets betrayed by the being that brought him there, gets kicked back to Earth, and he spends his life trying to figure out how to get back into the 9 realms. And so, the story starts up in Soulhome, where he's trying to rebuild the strength he once had. And the way you do that is by creating a Soulhome, which requires various materials that you can find throughout these 9 realms that are basically magical, right? But the idea is not only do you have to have the right materials, but you have to build something that matches your soul and that can power you up and give you different abilities. So for instance, one character, Fiu, in Soulhome, she has aversion to light, and with that, her friends help her find a curtain that she can put in her Soulhome that, has some magical properties, but with that, she can kind of decrease the amount of light that she is exposed to, and that helps her deal with light and with also concealing herself, so it helps her gain stealth powers as well. And that is just a fascinating concept to me. I love it. So the Weird Key Chronicles is probably my favorite of her series at this point, especially since she's continuing it right now. And they're also shorter novels, so you can read through them a little faster, and the pacing seems, I would say, probably more in the average pace, with still, once again, a focus on politics, economics, and stuff as the characters are traveling through the worlds and trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to not step on toes and be able to collect as many resources as I can? So if you like those types of stories, like cultivation novels or martial arts stories, while also liking the idea of building this structure that matches your personality as well as the powers you want, then I think you would like Soulhome. But side note, the protagonist is very cynical at this point, especially since, you know, he was this young bright-eyed guy who then gets betrayed and tossed back to Earth. So yeah, expect some cynicism. There's a little bit of cursing, not as much as in Street Cultivation, and so on. The next series of Sarah Lynn's on my list to discuss is New Game Minus. The first book is Changing Faces, and the idea behind this one is that an evil lich is destroyed at the beginning. But he finds a way to take over the body of the hero who killed him, right? And then he's trying to figure out, okay, why is everything basically working the way it is? Like, why are heroes constantly arriving at this planet? Why can I think differently now, etc., etc.? And various things happen. I don't want to spoil too much because, once again, it's pretty interesting. But the basic idea is this planet the Lich is from has been turned into a game world of sorts. And so he's trying to figure out how to use this to his logical advantage. And at the same time, starts kind of developing some amount of empathy and ability to care about forming relationships with people in his party and stuff. And yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but this one does feature one of the characters, and of which most of them are female that join him, basically saying, hey, you feel like the only person that has really treated me well and seen me for who I am. Would you mind letting me basically enter a relationship with you while you are also dating someone else at the moment? So, that's one cautionary thing. But honestly, it doesn't really go anywhere, and it's more just like an example of the character development of the various characters and how it's also sad that this character has felt so unseen and unwanted, I guess you could say, that that option feels better to her than anything else she's come across so far. But, yeah, I'd still say that could be a problem for people. But if you like video games, if you like having the bad guy basically become the good guy, trying to figure out how to save the world, and the mysteries behind what exactly has turned their world into this gamified system, then I think you'd like New Game Minus. So lit RPG enthusiasts, I think, should check it out. Now let's discuss the Brightest Shadow a bit. So once again, full disclosure, I only got about, I think, a third of the way through the book before I quit. And once again, to me, it felt like pacing-wise, it was too focused on the politics and the world building over the characters. Didn't mean she didn't have great characters and cool power sets as well. Once again, kind of a cultivation idea. The basic premise being there's this race of creatures that have invaded, and there's this prophecy that there will be a hero that kind of kicks them out. And yet, these invaders are supposed to apparently destroy the world or something, but instead of destroying the world, they're just kind of, administering cities they've conquered and frankly not being too terrible about it. So the main character, she is trying to investigate and figure out, is there an option for peace? And that's about as far as I got, which all very interesting, but I just couldn't stick with it at the time, and sometimes that happens, unfortunately. But if you love world building, I would highly recommend The Brightest Shadow, and that kind of flipping a prophecy on its head idea as well is always pretty interesting. General ideas to consider for whether or not you'd like Sarah Lynn's work. Basically, the protagonists are all pretty logical. I mean, they obviously have their own reasons for pursuing things or having emotions guiding them towards a goal, but they pursue it in a way that makes sense in context, and if they make mistakes or anything, they learn from them. I think the writing is very good in terms of characters. Once again, world building, I think, is fantastic from Sarah Lynn. So if you just like an interesting world and want to know kind of politically what's going on, how's the economy affected by such a thing as, you know, every martial artist in the world, which is basically everybody, using their personal power as currency, and how you need to be able to generate that and all that, it's very well thought out. So overall, I think a lot of people will like it if they prefer a more mature story that takes into account all these different facets of the world and how their characters are trying to find their place in the world. It may not be as fast-paced as some of the other novels that you like, but I would suggest giving them a try if you just want to see a cool idea get really fleshed out and done well. So in summary, I would recommend Sarah Lynn if you're an adult who really enjoys things like lit RPG or great world building like Tolkien, only a little more modern and more in-depth in terms of like politics and economics, and of course some flashy fight scenes which are pretty fun with superpowers. So yes, once again, this is my author profile of Sarah Lynn, and I would highly recommend her to anybody who wants to check it out. My suggestion for starting with Sarah Lynn would probably be Street Cultivation, as long as you're okay with some curse words, some adult jokes, and violence, basically, because the world is violent. Other than that, I really do love Soulhome, so that feels to me like a no-brainer, especially if you're a little shorter on time and can't afford to invest as much time in reading. Her Weird Key Chronicle series is kind of designed to be shorter so she can pump those books out more, which I think is a fantastic idea because it works pretty well. Well, fellow reader, I hope you have a great day.